So this is something new in Java. How to enter get the input from the console. So we might need to ask for a prompt for the input, and then we can like right now we are not using the graphical user interface. We are doing non-GUI things in class right now, and we will get the inputs or read the inputs from the keyboard. So it's a 3-step process. Okay. So if you want to read any input from the keyboard, the first thing that you need to import java.util.scanner package. Okay, so this is just like our hash include and C++, but it imports the java.util.scanner package. Then so this is a scanner, is a class. Okay, so we have to create an object of that class. Okay, so in is the object of the class. So here we are setting up the object of the scanner class. Okay, and then we are using the keyword new. So do you remember that with the new keyword we allocate memory in the heap? This indicates that we are dynamically allocating the memory. Dynamic memory allocation, right? And so what type of memory we are creating? We are creating a memory of the scanner class type, right? And we are passing the input as system.in. So in is our variable name, or the object name of the scanner class, right? So here you can have any variable, any object name, such as input or any end bottles or anything. So here in is an object, right, of the scanner class. Then the third is to use the methods of the new scanner object to get the input. So depending upon what kind of input is you have, you can use the methods of the scanner object to get that input. So if you are trying to get input integer inputs, then you would use next int. Okay, and if you want to get input as double, then you would use the method next double. So as we have learned that this is the dot operator, right? We use our objects and use the dot operator to call that method. Similarly, here we are using our object in of the scanner class and with the dot operator to call the method class. So this closing brackets indicates that this is a method, right? So next in and next double are the methods of the scanner object. So scanner class is the part of the util package. So here when you see that java.util.scanner, it indicates that this is the package and this is the class. This is the package and scanner is the class of the util package. And we use import statement to use classes from packages. So our keyword here, instead of hash include that we have in C++, we have the keyword import, and we're importing the scanner classes from util package to use them, right? So the first step, you remember that we have to, so first step is that we have to import the scanner object. This is our first step, right? Then the second step is to create the object of that class, of the scanner class. And then, so this is a prompt. So here system.out.print, please enter the number of bottles. So here you don't have to use the println because it will prompt on the console window. And then when you enter the value, it will wait for the user input and then assign, place that input into the variable bottle. Okay. So this is the variable bottle that holds the value of the user input. So when the next int method is called, it waits for the user input, and once the value is entered, it will place that input into the variable bottle. Okay. So you can format your output. We have seen some of the format specifiers. We have seen the format specifiers in our C++ class as well, right? So so here we have, so if you want to format your output, like the number of decimal spaces, like if you want it to be right justified, if you want some spaces before the values, you can specify the width of the field. You can specify the field width. You can specify what kind of value it is, like is it float, is it decimal, is it string. These are some of the format specifiers. So we need the percentage sign. So let's look at some of the examples of format specifiers. So here again, D represents integer. Okay, so D, if you have percentage D, D is used for integer. If you place some number before D, then it will add those number of spaces before that. Like it will add spaces so that the field width is 5. Say, so here you can see that this the field width 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the whole width, field width becomes 5. So now you can, just like in our C example, we have the printf statement, right? Printf, and then you can put anything here. Say, for example, we are working with this quantity, right? So quantity, and then you place your percentage 5D, everything in the double quotes. Then it will get the, and then you would place commas. Let me write this again. So I have more space. Okay, so in C or C++, which we borrow from C, is what's the syntax? Printf, first double quotes, quantity, percentage D, double quotes, comma, and then the value. Say, for example, the quantity is the variable quant holds the value, say 5, right? So you can specify after comma, you can specify quant. You can also just write the number 5 itself. So when it's printed, it will display like this. So quantity colon and then value 5, right? So this is how we learned in C, right? So this is the same. The format specifiers works the same in Java as well. here, example, quantity percentage 5D sets a field width of 5 and then prints the value. And again, F is for the float. And here, if you just use F, percentage F, then it will give you the floating point number. If you specify how many digits you require after the decimal point, then it will give you those number of digits. So here, 0.2 means that there will be 2 decimal digits after the 2 decimal digits, or 2 digits after the decimal point. Then if you have 7.2, if you have something like that, that means the text width would be 7, and then you will have 2 decimal points, 2 digits after the decimal point. So that means we can combine multiple different types of specifiers together and format our output. S is for string, and then you have percentage D and 0.2 of F, that is for float, right? So you can format multiple values at once. So this 24 is for percentage D, and 1.22 is corresponds to 0.2 F, right? So here, percentage N indicates new line, right? So now the hello world will be written in the hello, and then the world will be written in the next line. So if you are printing your output with format specifiers, then you can write the text in the quotes, price per liter, and then the percentage 10.2F. Like, this is how you want to format your output. So here 10 means that when the price is printed, it will have a text width of 10, and the pointer indicates that there will be 2 digits after the decimal point. Right, so you can left justify your string. So when you use minus, your string or your output would start from the left. Okay, so here minus 10 S. So S indicates that we have an output of string type, right? Then 10 just indicates that it's the field width is of size 10, and minus then indicates that it is left justified. By default, if you don't specify anything, by default it is right justified. Okay. Again, you can print multiple values together. So here minus 10s would format the total string total, and the 10 and this float, this will format the price, right? So for total, it is minus 10s. So the field width is 10. It is left justified, and and it's a string, right? And for price, how is it formatted? It doesn't specify that it's left, right? So it is right justified. It also has a field width of 10, and there are 2 points after 2 digits after the decimal point. So why do Java developers wear glasses? Because they don't see sharp, right? So that's why they have to wear glasses. Okay, so moving on to loop constructs. So again, loop constructs are very similar to our C++, and the concepts and everything is very similar to C++. This is an example again from your book. We can use for um, like for calculating the compound interest, for simulations, for event-driven programs, we can use the while loop. So here, this is um, the steps or the pseudocode for writing the program for calculating uh, the final year value. Like after how many years will your balance become more than 20,000, right? So the steps, you can follow the steps to write. The syntax is again the same, while condition, and then we have our braces, right? And then this is the body of the while loop. So as long as the condition is true, the while body will be executed. And once the condition becomes false, then it comes out of the loop, right? So here is an example of the example. So here, while, so the syntax is while is the keyword, and we have the braces, the balance is less than target, right? So this is the expression. And then you update the year, and then we have double interest equal to balance. So this interest variable will have a scope within this while loop only, right? So once you're out of the scope, you won't be able to see the interest variable, right? And every time the while is executed, the variable interest is created, and balance into rate divided by 100, the value is stored in the interest. Now balance is initialized before the while loop, so its visibility remains after the while loop itself, and whatever value the balance plus interest gets calculated and gets stored in the balance. So you can, after the while loop, you can print the value of the balance. So if you look at the flow chart, so here we check the expressions. Balance is less than the target. If it's true, then increment the year and add interest to the balance, and then execute the loop again. If it's false, then you are out of the loop and execute the statements after the while loop, right? So you come out of the loop and execute the loop while the condition is true. See, okay. So I think we discussed this already. This is the syntax, this is the condition and the statements. The balance is initialized before the while loop. This is the condition, and then there shouldn't be any semicolon here, no semicolon here. Okay, then these statements are executed while the condition is true. And the interest, this variable is created each time the loop executes or iterates. If the condition never becomes false, then it will enter a infinite loop. So this condition should terminate. Otherwise, it will enter into an infinite loop. And then we should follow a specific style of placing our braces. This is a good style. So you can place your braces here as well, but again, like, be consistent with your styling. Again, if you just have one statement in the while loop, then you don't need the braces, but it's always good to use them so that your program structure is well organized. Moving on to the for loop. Again, for loop is also basically the same as in C++. And the difference between while loop and C++, I mean, sorry, while loop and for loop is that you know how many times the loop is going to execute, you know how many times or what is the, um, like have a constant increment or decrement operate variable. Um, and then it has a fixed starting point and a fixed ending point. So you know like how many times the loop is going to execute. But in the while loop, um, we we can have we should initialize the while loop and it's done outside the while loop, right? Then in the while we have the condition for testing, and then there should be an update inside the while loop itself, right? So you can write uh, write a program using the for loop or the while loop. Both will do the um, uh, any operation, any um, logic can be implemented using the while loop or the for loop. But usually the programmers prefer the for loop because everything is in one line, like the condition, the initialization, and the update is in one line. So how, like if you see the sequence of execution for a for loop, like initialize counter is executed only once. So so this is executed only once. Okay, then we have the condition check. So condition is checked, and if the condition is true, then the body of the loop is executed. Okay, so this is step 2, right? And if this is true, then the body of the loop is executed. If it's false, then you're out of the for loop, right? So once the body of the loop is executed, then there will be a counter update. Like the counter will be updated, and the condition will be checked again. So now, so the condition, condition will always. So whenever there's an update, the counter is updated. The condition will be checked, and when the condition is false, then it will come out of the loop. So you see this line, thus for loop, it executes one extra time, but the body of the loop executes uh, the specified number of times. So here, say for example, the counter 1, right? So for loop starts from 1 and checks if it's less than equals to 10. So that means it will, when the counter is 1, this is executed, right? So counter, right? And print print statement. So 1, yes. 2, yes. 3, yes. 4, yes. 5, yes. 6, yes. 7, yes. 8, yes. 9, yes. 10, yes. Right? Because it is less than equal to. So that means our um, our body is executed 10 times. But then the for loop, it goes back again, right? And then the counter is updated, and the counter is now 11, and the condition is checked, and the condition is false, so the body won't be executed. So the for loop is executed one extra time than the body of the for loop, right? So, um, so that's the for loop execution. If you see the syntax, it's the similar, it's the same as in C++. We have the initialization, we have the condition, and we have the update, and that's the statements or the body of the for loop. Again, we have discussed this already in the previous slide. this initialization happens only once before the loop starts. This is the condition is checked before each operation, and this update is executed after each iteration. Again, this variable I is defined only in the for loop. Once you are out of this for loop, you won't be able to see the output of I, right? So, or see the value of I, because the scope of the I is within the body of the for loop. So, so when to use a for loop, right? So here, everything you can, what like a while loop can do everything a for loop can do, right? So, so you can write, so to implement something like a large program where it needs iterations, you can implement the while loop or the for loop. It will do the same thing, just you need to initialize at the appropriate places, have condition, and then update the variables, update the variable. But in for loop, you initialize, have condition, and update the value all in one line, and that becomes easy. Easy, right? So now next loop that we know is the do while loop, right? So in the do while loop, the body of the loop is executed at least once. The condition is checked after the first loop, right? So usually the while loop and the for loop is called a pre-condition, pre-check, right? And the do while loop is called the post. So here you see the flow chart. So flow chart first prompts the user to enter a value 100, and it copies the input to the variable value and checks if the value is greater than 100, greater than equals to 100. So if it is greater than equals to 100, if it's true, then it executes the do while loop again. If it is false, uh, then it is out of the loop, right? So the one thing that you need to note here is that we provide a semicolon after the while and its condition. So if we have a normal while loop, then we don't have any semicolon here after the while loop, right? But in do while, we have the do keyword, and then we have braces, we have the body of the do while loop, right? And then we have the while, and then the condition, and then we have the semicolon. So this is the do while loop. And sometimes it is like when you are entering a set of values and you don't know the number of inputs that you need, you can use a special character or value to signal that we need to stop. We don't need to enter any more items. We don't know. So this is usually used when we don't know how many items are in the list or how many items we are supposed to enter, right? So that special character or that value is called sentinel values. Okay, so so basically it donates the end of the data set and indicates that it's not part of the data set. Okay, and it's also indicate that this is the end. We want to quit. We don't want to enter any more input. So if you know that your inputs would be positive numbers, then you can use -1 as your sentinel value. If you say, so here as an example here, we have salary. Salary is a variable, right? In dot next double. So it will get the input from the user using the next double method of the scanner object. So while salary is not equals to -1, so as long as this is true that the value hasn't -1 hasn't been entered, this will execute, right? So sum equals to sum plus salary, then count plus plus. So we are counting how many times the salary has been entered, and then you enter the salary again. So here you enter, you're waiting for the next input, and at the input, as soon as you get the input in the salary, then it will go to the while loop, check if it's -1 again. If it's true, then it will execute the body. Um, yeah, so if it's not equals to -1, then it will execute the body of the while loop. And if it is equals to -1, then it will come out of the while loop. So, so you must have used Q to quit in your labs in C++, right? So that acts as a sentinel value. Sometimes you can use a Boolean variable as a flag variable to control the loop. So what we do, we initialize our Boolean value as true or false, and when some and like we have our while loop, and as long as this Boolean variable is true, then we execute the loop. Otherwise, there should be some condition which turns the Boolean variables um, to true, and so that it comes out of the loop. Okay, so Boolean variables can be used as to control the loop, and that is called the flag variable. Uh, so what if your input is can be negative values, right? So then you cannot use -1 as your sentinel, because -1 can be a valid input, right? So in that case, what we can do is like we can have a non-numeric sentinel. Say, for example, here the Q to quit, right? So if you have a non-numeric sentinel, then how are you going to check? Because the scanner waits for the say, for example, we have this in next double, right? And it's waiting for integer, it's waiting for a double value. But if you enter anything other than double, it will fail, right? So first, what we do is like we have a condition, we can check check the scanner input first, right? So if the input is next double, so the method has next double. If the input is next double, then it will return true, right? And the while body will be executed. Otherwise, it will return false. So here, if you're entering input values and after you're done with input values, you enter Q. It will the has next double will return false, and then the while loop won't be executed. So let's look at an example on our online Java compiler. And this is the program that we need to write, right? So write a program that will take an unknown number of integer inputs terminated by a sentinel. When done, display number of inputs, average, minimum input, maximum input, right? So let's go to the compiler. Okay, So I have this already written here. Let me explain you the program. So here we are getting input from the user or from the keyboard, right? So here you see this interactive mode. So in the previous example, you would see that this is checked, right? If you want to get inputs from the user, you need to uncheck this, okay? So, and then you will, so like, so suppose this is checked. If I uncheck it, I will have a field to text field to enter the inputs. Okay, so here you can enter your inputs and um, and get the input from the keyboard into your program as inputs to your program, right? So let's see. I'll remove everything and we will write it again. Okay. So what does it say? It says that we need to take an unknown number of integer inputs. That means we have to take inputs from the keyboard or from the user, right? So for that, what's the first step? That we have to, we need a scanner class object, right? So scanner in equals to new scanner system dot in. Okay. How do we take the input from the keyboard? So what was the first step? First step was to import our scanner class using the util import keyword in the util package, right? And the second step was to create an object of the scanner class. So here our object is in. Okay, so we created the object of the scanner class using the new keyword. And now let's see what variables we would need to write this program. So first we would need the variable for the integer, right? So let's say num. Let's say the integer is num. Then we would need to count the number of inputs, right? So let's say number of inputs, num inputs. We can have a variable num inputs. Then we can initialize it to 0. Then what do we need? Then we need to calculate the average. We need to sum up the sum the inputs, right? So we need the variable sum, which also you can initialize it to 0. Then we need to minimum input and maximum input, right? So we need a max variable and a min variable, right? So max variable, so max variable and min variable, right? So let's comment this max and min for now. Let's see if we can just take in the inputs and find the sum, right? So how do we get the input from the user into our variable num? So what do we have? So num equals to in dot next int. So we are taking integer variables, so we can get the input using the method next int. Okay, and then just to check that this is working, let's print it out. So num equals to num, right? And so again, we have to uncheck this interactive mode. Here you get a text field where you can enter the inputs. It says uh, std in inputs, right? So here you can enter the value, whatever value you want, and let's see if it executes. Right, so this is working. Okay, so now we have to get as many inputs as possible. And so that means we would have to prompt the user, right? So let's prompt the user system dot out dot print um, enter inputs or integer numbers. Integer numbers, comma, q to quit. Again, you can take, so if your inputs are all positive numbers, then you can take -1 as your sentinel. And but here I'm taking q as my sentinel and checking if it's if the number is integers, then I'll calculate the average, right? I'll take the input and calculate the average. So that means that I will need a while loop to get as many integers as possible and read. And when q is entered, I'll quit the while loop, right? So let's do that. So while in dot has next int. So this, what does this give me? So as long as the input that's been entered is integer, it will be true, and it will the while loop will be executed. So in the while loop, what we are doing, we are getting the value in our variable num. So now this one, we can write it inside our while loop. Okay. And then we also need to count how many inputs has been entered, right? So we can update our number of inputs variable plus plus, and then we can also update our variable sum plus equals to num, right? So the shorthand notation also works in Java. So so let's see if we can calculate the average using this information. System dot out dot print then semicolon average of the numbers entered plus, so what's average? Average is the sum divided by number of inputs, right? So sum divided by num inputs. Let's run this program and see if our values, if our output are correct. Let's enter some inputs. So 6, 3, 2, 1. So 6 plus 5, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Let's execute. Expected here. Can initialize your num. So here num. Let's execute this again. Okay. So so num is being calculated. So here, whatever be the last input, that's what sum is. That's what num is here. So our last input is 1, and that's what my num is. So num equals to 1. Average of the numbers entered. So sum of the numbers divided by inputs, number of inputs. So 6, 5, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 divided by 5. So that gives you 5 threes of 15. So this is integer division, right? So that will give you 3, right? So that means our program is so far so good, right? Now we have to calculate. So number of inputs are done. So maybe here we can write number of inputs. Inputs. So we got the number of inputs. Then we have the average. Now we have to calculate the minimum and the maximum. So we can have the variable max and min. So what does this max and min variable does? We can initialize them to max um, to a minimum variable, and then whatever values we have, we are comparing it to that min. So here, what we can use integer dot min underscore value, right? And for min value, we can use integer dot max underscore value. So you remember from our first slide, the integer value, two to the power 2 raised to the power 31 minus 1 is your maximum value, and minus 2 to the raised to the power 31 gives you integer dot minimum value. So these are constants, and these constants assigned to those values, right? So we can use this to assign them as our minimum and the maximum values. Okay, so now when we compare, we can do the comparison here itself. So if num is greater than max, then max equals to num, right? So the question is like here I've assigned minimum value to the maximum variable, right? So here minimum value is the lowest value. So even if you now enter negative values, that negative value will be greater than the integer dot min value, and that will give you the correct result, right? Similarly, for minimum value, we have initialized it to maximum value, and anything lower than that will give you the minimum value, right? So if num is less than min, then min is equals to num. Now you can have the min and max printed out. So minimum minimum input is min, and maximum input is max. Now let's run the program. Oh, so let's enter Q to quit. So number of inputs is entered 5. Average of the numbers entered is 3. Minimum input is 1, and maximum input is 6. So you can validate again, test your program again with different inputs and see if that will make a difference. So 17, 18, 19, 20. So let's see if that changes anything. So 6, 5, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. We need 4. So input number of input entered is 5, and now the average is 4, right? So the total is the sum of all the numbers entered is 20. 20 divided by 5 gives you 4. Minimum input is 2, and then the maximum input is 6. So this validates our validator program as well. So that's it for now. Maybe you can practice more on the compiler, on the online compiler, and try to write your program yourself and see if you can remember the syntax and the method names and um, how to get inputs from the keyboard or from the user. Thank you.